Sekeres and Price for Tuesday, December 16th, 2025, a presentation of Bet365. We're coming to you from the Pacific Toyota Dealer Studio here at the historic Wall Center. Visit shoptoyota.ca or visit your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. Matt Sekeres alongside Province columnist Patrick Johnston covering the Canucks, just back from Mexico. Four-time Juno Award winner Mike Rogerson hitting switches and conducting things in the producer's booth. We have a big show planned for you, in part thanks to this guy. How are you?
Great.
Good to see you. Let's put your microphone on.
No, come on.
There we go.
I'm great. There we go. Who needs a mic that works? I can just yell.
He's just a boomer. Yeah. You just hear him through the soundproof walls here at the Pacific Toyota Dealers Studio. Well, welcome home. I know you were in Mexico last week. You and Blake hell of a time to be away and taking it in remotely. We'll have some fun with you.
I didn't check in with the Canucks. Could you please? Just so you know.
Can you just give me another week? First chance to talk to you, buddy. What do you think of the trade?
Well, I think as everyone has said, you lose the best player, you lose the trade.
I don't believe that anymore.
Well,
it's a salary cap world.
Yes.
That's like a that's like a Sam Pollock, Cliff Fletcherism from years gone by.
I would say what I was going to say was the fact that they got three guys, one of whom could seriously be like a real top end defenseman here. But all three, and as I wrote in a column, as we will discuss, I wrote in my column, I talked to Jim Rutherford last night. Three guys that fill in needs that they had. It is as close to a win both ways kind of trade. Like
I think so.
Quinn Hughes inherently made this team better, right? But we could see how flawed this team had become, partly self-imposed. And they didn't have any. They had talked openly. They needed a second line center, right? They now have a second line center. But if you look beyond that,
they were going to need a defenseman to replace Hughes. They have a defenseman to replace Hughes. At least the offensive and power play
coming,
yeah,
right? Like there was so little. Abbotsford is having a terrible year, and not just because obviously the Canucks have had injuries in the NHL and they've had to call guys up, but just because there's no next wave. There's Braden Coots and it's kind of it, and Alexei Medvedev, right? But he's a goalie, right? Like they goalies. But there was just not enough stuff, enough guys, which is the premise that I put to Jim Rutherford, the army of guys that Jason Botchford, our late friend, wrote about or yelled about 7 years ago. I can't even lost track. But like the point being that you can do this quickly. You just need to really focus. There was a column he wrote February 2018. I was looking at this. He talked about the Bruins. The Bruins traded Johnny Boychuk. It was in 16 months. They won the Stanley Cup, and they had completely reset their direction, right? Like it can be done. And that's what Rutherford's point was. And I said, and that's where I'm interested to see now. He's like, you're absolutely right. We need more young guys. We need to have as many as we can. Hopefully that includes picks, sort of my angle. And you just get going, and you can have a new kind of group going forward that's young and interesting and exciting. And that is what this fan base needed to see. And we're going to get this season was so lost. So that's why that comes back to the trade.
We're going to get to more details of your conversation with Jim Rutherford and the story you have today on the province or in the province. Well, both. It's become a pet peeve of mine that whoever gets a best player in the deal wins the deal. Again, that is an archaic philosophy in the NHL. That predates the salary cap by decades. I can understand why people still use it because, how can a player like Quinn Hughes not improve your team immediately? And, of course, most Stanley Cup teams have superstars, right? There are very few Stanley Cup teams that you look up and down the roster and you don't see a superstar or two. And so if you wanted to argue, as Blake did on Friday, in the here and now, the Canucks might actually be a better team, like more capable of winning games with two additional holes filled beyond the Quinn Hughes Buium swap on defense. Yeah, I can hear that. If you want to argue that the Canucks Stanley Cup aspirations took a hit because they lost a star player and didn't immediately get a star back, we'll see. Buium could be that. I can accept that as well. But the fact of the matter is team building in the cap era is a jigsaw puzzle. It's about getting pieces in place as cost effectively as you can. And the Canucks have done very well here. I mean, Marco Rossi is a legitimate second-line center in the National Hockey League. And at $5 million in a new cap world, Peach, he's a deal for a second-line center in the new cap age. Most teams are going to have to pay more than that for their second-line center. Buium, of course, playing on an entry-level contract right now, especially if he's going to hold down top 4 minutes. And we anticipate and hope that he holds down first pair minutes going forward. That's a very, very valuable piece. Ogren, okay, we'll see. He hasn't scored much in the NHL in his toe dips of late. But if he can give him something, again, for what he's making on an entry-level deal and what these guys are going to continue to make here going forward. Now, we'll see about Buium. He's could get a huge extension this summer. The Canucks got 3 players who should help here and cost-effective pieces to build with going forward on top of the first-round pick. All of this brings us to our daily poll question today. Do you blame Quinn Hughes for wanting out? You can vote yes. You can vote no. Do so at the Sekeres and Price X and YouTube channels. Mr. Johnston, what says you?
Yes, I think so.
You're blaming him. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Why?
It was, I don't know. You don't want to see people leave, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a tricky one. I don't blame him in the sense of like this was not a great fun place to be anymore,
to say the least.
Right?
I mean, it's hard to explain. But watching the game on Sunday morning, I watched it. It felt like there was a gorilla off the back.
I guess.
That there had been some weight lifted, that it was like sort of a light, fun, carefree watch as opposed to what I had been watching.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I suppose that pulls back, and is that on him? I don't know. But I think I go back to the thing I wrote, I don't know, a month ago when I said, even in the worst days, Bo Horvat had a story to tell. And this is a guy that had
even on the worst days, Bo kept his attitude too.
Well,
and his professionalism and his leadership and captaincy were right there at the fore, and that started to wane with Quinn.
It really did. And there's a lot, I think, probably, we've seen a lot, we've heard a lot. This isn't the first guy to kind of things go wrong. But in the end, it's not sort of a business where everything needs to go your way every day. Mm-hmm. And so it was. I guess it was just the way it sort of ended in a disappoint. It was just disappointing. It was just, and the sort of the kind of the sort of not wanting to speak to the truth, which was that listen, I get not wanting to be here. Then just say it.
Well, and we're going to get into that.
On that.
The Hughes camp seemed quite touchy about when he wanted out and the means by which he achieved it. Elliot Friedman backtracked on trade request, quote unquote. Trade request has kind of become a trigger phrase with these NHL players who want out. It's kind of like if you preface the question with soft or a quit or a tank, you're going to get a certain visceral argue with the premise reaction, even when that is the truth. And let's face it, this is the truth here. Rutherford felt compelled to explain, I don't mean he wanted out a year and a half ago, or these are my words, not Jim. I don't mean that he asked out a year and a half ago. I just got a feeling about it a year and a half ago. Look, the Canucks worried, and Friedman reported this, and rightfully so, that once word got out that he wasn't going to resign, and it was being speculated widely anyways, right? Like everyone was saying outside of this market, Vancouver and Canucks fans have to get come to grips with the fact that he won't be signing an extension this summer. The Canucks worried that would affect their leverage, and rightfully so. Like that was wise stewardship and good process from Jim Rutherford. Now, I voted no, and look, really disliked some of the lazy shifts that we saw of late, which was totally out of character, right? The bad body language. Tocchet had talked for years about body language, right? And Quinn was supposed to be your captain and your guy carrying forward that message, and then he just reverted into it this year. The Kurt interviews, again, another example. So I could have done without all of that, but we all know how the Vancouver Canucks have been owned and operated during his tenure here. And the other thing that we always have to remember when talking about these players, they get drafted into this. It isn't a choice of theirs. Like Patrick, for example, when he was coming out of school, he was an in-demand teacher. There were school boards across the country fighting for Patrick's services. And as a Vancouver Burnaby guy, you chose to teach here, right?
Yeah.
But you had options available
Sure.
to many people who are top of their class entering the workforce get the opportunity to choose whom they're going to work for and where. That is not how it works with hockey players. So, look, he did his best. The organization failed Quinn. Quinn did not fail the organization, as many have said since Friday. I want to go a little deeper on this because I saw our buddy Gary Mason musing. Did JT Miller's departure last season pave the way here for Hughes to leave? You're in that room. You know them a little better than I do. You tell me, how close were Quinn and JT, and do you think the writing was on the wall for Hughes' departure after the Miller trade?
I think
January 31st.
from what I can gather, it was a tense situation for all. The sort of nuts and bolts still are, I have to say, unclear. Certainly, I've heard stories like many people have. Some elements I think have some credence, but the sort of nuts and bolts of it was a very difficult situation that saw real upset, and it was asymmetric, right? Like I think it was much more what fell on Pettersson versus what fell on Miller in terms of the dynamic, right? Like it was Miller pushing towards Pettersson, and it fell on players like Hughes and Besser, I think especially, to try to find a way through it and try to push things forward. You know, it was very interesting to me. I think last week Adam Foote brought up Brock Besser and the sort of leader he is becoming, or perhaps always has been. You know, as someone described to me, Brock Besser is a guy who just wants everyone to get along, right? Like he is a positive influence. He's a positive person. Hughes has not been an instinctual captain in his life, right? It was a bit of a looking at the options in front of them and saying we need to pick someone, and he's the sort of neutral force that is clearly our best player, and there's an element there where he can just lead the way. And I think that whole dynamic weighed on him heavily and was very difficult. And that as much as sort of Miller having to move on and everyone recognizing this, and you talk again and again and again, you talk to everybody involved, it had to go this way. That even so, that dynamic, you know, the fact that they'd been able to go for so long and then something broke, I think that in many ways, that is when it sort of went, no, this is going to go. Like, this is not going to carry on. There's not going to be a future here. That to me, and as I wrote him, I do say in my column, like I had been operating under the assumption that he was gone as long ago as last spring, that this was not going to be something to return to, because simply the future of the team was not what it had been chosen, right? They had chosen a future that had Pettersson and Miller as the key offensive linchpins up front, and now that was no longer the case.
Yeah, and of course created this void at second line center that became a big issue in the opening third now of this season. I want to play everyone this because while the Vancouver Canucks management team would like to quickly, needless to say, move on from the Quinn Hughes trade, it wasn't that long ago that they were talking about if they ever had to trade Quinn Hughes or lose Quinn Hughes, that would be a tragic and calamitous day for the franchise. In fact, they talked about it in April at the year-end management postmortem press conference with a question from Global's Jay Janauer. Let's go back to April.
I think the greatest fear for Canuck fans here is 2 years from now. Quinn Hughes can become an unrestricted free agent. How cognizant are you with the moves that you're going to be making this summer and within these next 2 years? Do you consult with Quinn? Do you let him know what the game plan is? And when do you start thinking about an extension for Quinn Hughes? Because I think that'd be one loss with this franchise. I don't know if you'd ever bounce back if he was to leave here.
Totally agree, 100%. The one thing that we will be sure of, that we will have enough cap space to offer him the kind of contract that he deserves. That's the one thing we can prepare for. And it may not boil down to money with him. You know, he said before he wants to play with his brothers. And that would be partly out of our control, in our control, if we brought his brothers here. So there's many moving parts here. Agree 100%. This franchise cannot afford to lose a guy like Quinn Hughes. And we will do everything we can to keep him here, but at the end of the day, it'll be his decision.
So there you have it. This franchise cannot afford to lose Quinn Hughes, and totally agree when asked, will the franchise ever bounce back? Could they ever bounce back if it had to lose Quinn Hughes? Many have gone back and want to recriminate the moves of last January, February, the Marcus Pettersson trade in particular. If Rutherford, in fact, was aware 18 months ago that Hughes might want to leave. I want to shorten the timeline there. Peach, I want to ask about basically two moves this summer, which were really the only two moves this summer. You had a sense that Quinn was going to leave. You hired Adam Foote.
Yeah.
A coach that I don't think the 31 other franchises would have even interviewed for a head coaching position. You did so under the guise of, well, he's the next best thing to talk it. Hughes really likes him. Maybe he's the guy because he's aware of everything that happened last season to be able to get this franchise to next, as well as cozy up and be that shoulder to cry on mentor, whatever you want to call it, for Quinn.
Yeah, I mean,
that funny. Seems even more strange to me now.
And I'm not really making an excuse here. It was funny. Farhan and I were talking about this. Who is actually available?
Manny Malhotra, the Calder Cup winning
that's
in your organization.
That's the one real clear alternative because, you weren't hiring Joel Quenneville, right? There was turnover. I suppose Mike Sullivan could have talked.
I don't think Sullivan was coming here.
I don't think that was happening, right? Like it was just.
But there were established NHL, like Pete DeBoer is still out there. I'm not a particularly big fan of his, but Pete DeBoer's done some winning in this league.
You look at just look at the guys who got hired after Foote. I mean, you got Blashill, you got Lane Lambert, you got Dan Muse, you got Marco Sturm, you got Glenn Gulletson, right? Like
three of those guys had experience. The other two, Sturm, once upon a time was here.
And there was noise perhaps that he might have come, but in the end, they went with the guy they already had, who had not a lot of experience, and there was that big sell job. Well, he gets along great with Quinn, right? But you have to think, even in the back of his mind, Quinn Hughes was thinking, this is a big step away from what we had before. I mean, the Rick Tocchet Quinn Hughes dynamic was important. They found themselves in a spot, and we talked about this tons, right? That the future was, if you have 2 years left of Quinn Hughes, is there a way to juice yourself for this season? And they failed. And that, in the end, that is another thing that comes up in Rutherford and my discussion. He basically goes, listen, 10 years ago, you could sign free agents. Now that it's really hard. Most of the guys you want don't even make the free agency. That certainly is something they discovered last summer, right? That there's two ways now really to make your team strong is that you can maybe make a trade. So like guys like Quinn Hughes do get moved in trade. My armrest hit the button. I'm sorry. Guys like Quinn Hughes do get moved in trades.
Mike and I are loving your Mike etiquette today. Yeah. We're going to have a full postmortem on Peach's Mike etiquette. Don't worry, we'll laugh. It's all fun.
Yeah, it's all good. And the draft, right? You've got the draft, you've got that, and that's it. And that this was a tough reality for them. that in the end, as you said, they landed on a coach that didn't have a lot of experience, and they never found that second line center. And you do find yourself wondering if they found a way.
Right.
They found a way to trade for Rossi. Does that make
And Patrick
I don't know.
read my mind because that was my next question, buddy. The word that came out last week that it was the Canucks that said no on Ratu she loves in a first for Rossi, who winds up signing for $5 million.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's effectively negligible cap hit wise with Evander Kane, right? Evander's just over $5 million.
Yeah.
Marco Rossi is $5 million on the button. If everything was about Operation Keep Quinn Hughes and you hired a coach that nobody else was going to hire to further those ends, how in the world, when you looked at center, knew it was more expensive not to, Jim Rutherford's words, not mine, to make the deal of Ratu, she loves who you knew you were dealing anyways, and 15th overall to get that center. Like, Adam Foote was an irregular hire. It was a risk, a gamble. We're seeing that play out. If you were going down that pathway, to me, the in conjunction move, the move that was symmetrical with Operation Keep Quinn, was paying up for that second line center to give this team and this season its best possible opportunity to compete. And it's not like the Rossi thing was done when you made the Kane trade, right? Like he had not yet re-signed in Minnesota. Rossi dangled out there for most of the summer.
Yeah.
And you guys quickly pivoted to Evander Kane, a winger, coming off tons of injuries for the same price tag after making the Foote hire and proceeding on the grounds of we've got to do everything we can to keep Quinn Hughes because, to quote the president, this franchise cannot afford to lose Quinn Hughes.
Yeah.
It's just so disjointed. I don't get.
I suppose you could pivot the other way and think about the GM was too busy to make this trade comment, right? And are we now, I mean, Rutherford's notion when he came here was that I am going to be this kind of expert grandfatherly advisor.
Yeah. I'm going to be Yoda. I'm not going to be on the front lines fighting
he's not Yoda
the
anymore,
Empire.
right?
No, he's Skywalker now.
Right?
He's
He's
wielding
come
the
back.
lightsaber.
So he's seen what his GM has done, and he's just like, okay, well, we've got to set a future here now because you haven't been able to get it done. I don't know that for sure. Obviously, I talked to him, but we didn't talk about that.
Okay,
but I look at the way things have shaked out, and I kind of find myself thinking a lot about that.
Let me ask you this before we move on, because you'll join us next week, but we may get to this beforehand. Does Quinn Hughes deserve, or does he get a post-career honor from the Vancouver Canucks franchise? Highest scoring defenseman in club history, although Alexander Edler was that, and he only got the one-day retirement contract. I don't think Quinn Hughes is going to get that here.
No.
But Ring of Honors, rafters, or nothing? What do you think? What do you think will happen, and what would be your...
He probably should get Ring of Honor, but there seems to have been a stall in adding people to Ring of Honor. I can hype up my book about a guy that everybody wants to see in the Ring of Honor. Kevin Bieksa, I think most people would say should be in the Ring of Honor.
I had championed the case of a certain second-line center, although based on recent headlines, reports, and news, that is absolutely not happening.
But there have been candidates beyond Alex Burrows. Alex Burrows is the most recent guy, right?
That was some time ago now.
And that was before COVID. That was 2019, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
There are candidates that have, if we go with sort of the way the equation has been set, there are clearly guys that should be there. And I would say Quinn Hughes is in that category. He's not going to get his number retired.
Yeah.
The Bure number retirement is a one-off thing.
Yeah, because the owner wanted it. Yeah, the owner wanted it.
And,
I was told there was great dissent on that, but the owner got it.
I think they're absolutely. It was not an easy, obvious choice. But
I think some people in the room said he quit on the Canucks. I mean, he quit when he was under signed contract, for God's sakes.
Yeah. But if you were looking at sort of the standard of most exciting, literally at the time, still most exciting player in history, right?
Yep.
That was why he was there.
Bure, Hughes,
And the fact
everybody
that,
else playing for third place.
And I think the fact is, you remember they bring him back and they had that end of season thing and everybody went nuts in the building and that sealed the deal right there, I think.
Let's get to our top story. It's brought to you by Yellow Dog Brewing, Neighborhood Brewing, a Foolish Winery. PJ spoke with Jim Rutherford for a piece in the province today, and the upshot is we're back to needing an army. Picks, prospects, players all these years after Botch. His mantra remains. Canucks trade Hughes for 3 24 and under players and a draft pick with the intention of adding more via Kiefer Sherwood trade and perhaps others. How much deeper will this rebuild go now that they're articulating the word rebuild? Connor Garland, Thatcher Demko, Jess Sherwood. Throw a sprinkle of Drew O'Connor on there. Maybe Bluger and Forbert if they ever get healthy as UFAs. What says you, Pete?
I mean,
tell us about the piece.
From discussing with him, that is more aggressive than I think they're laying out. Like, there's still need, as he said, we still need veterans, right? I mean, you still need guys to play.
Oh, I can remember Jim Benning telling me, I called him up after they had that July 1st when he signed Beagle and Roussel. Who's the other one?
There were 4, and I'm trying to remember.
Schaller, the backup goaltender.
Schaller.
And I went, Jim, I thought we were a youth movement. And he said, Matt, we're going to play kids. I'm not going to let them get killed. We need veterans. I said, okay. Anyways, they need veterans. Sorry, that was a trigger phrase.
No, it's fair.
Me.
I get it. There's a lot in the background here.
Oh my God, there's so much history here, Pete.
And that was my premise is that I heard I wasn't on this call. Jim had a call with a few people on Friday. I could have been on it, but
I sort of wonder if Canucks Sports Entertainment felt like if they could just reset every media member with somebody fresh who had no knowledge of the history of the club, how much easier it would be for them.
And I heard Jim say, well, rebuild, we've been doing it for a while. And I was like, okay. And then thinking about what they're talking about. And, he and I have had a dialogue going for a while going now. And he had mentioned to me a month and a half ago, we need young guys. Whatever word you want to call it, we need young guys. And the movement here is eyes on the future. We're not going for the playoffs this year. Like, we need to face reality. And I basically said,
he
Jim
probably can't say it, Patrick, but if they lose a bunch of games and get first overall pick,
they would not be unhappy.
Yeah,
he won't say it. He can't say it.
But
the point here is they would love to get Gavin McKenna. All right, let's be clear. But anyway, I basically said, Jim, the only thing that stood out, and I wanted to follow up because I appreciate how open it said, like, there are 2 previous senior managers, not your direct predecessor, but before here, over the last decade and a bit, who have gone to ownership and said, we need to go and we need to blow it up. We need to focus in on a couple seasons of difficulty, and at the end of that, we will be in a much better position than we are now with a bunch of new players, a bunch of young players. I said, how did you convince this owner? And he goes, honestly, he understands. He understands where we're at. He sees where we're at. And obviously part of that was understanding that Quinn Hughes was not going to be here forever. And so that was where that came from.
Well,
I put Botch's, like I said, I put Botch's premise, we need an army. Now we'll see what the picks
we're back to there.
Yeah.
Look, two schools of thought on the owner is finally ready to rebuild. Number one, there's a healthy dose of skepticism in this market, and we'll see between now and March 6th. The trade deadline, I completely understand that. In
absolutely.
fact, most of me shares that idea.
Yeah.
Or at least did share that idea until Friday, and them being proactive on a Quinn Hughes trade. Mm-hmm. The other part is, the other school of thought would be losing Quinn Hughes is such a deep cut, such a dramatic loss in comparison to others, even Bo Horvat and JT Miller, that it has actually changed the owner's philosophy and point of view that you can have a rebuild in this market. Which brings me to a tweet from your former colleague, Mr. Willis. And that was the other thing. It was incredible to see all the names of Vancouver media past weigh in on this because, I mean, well, but hey, look, and, Eddie in retirement, Dan Russell in retirement, everybody, weighing in on this. So here's what Ed tweeted, and I think he hit a lot of it here. Read several accounts that the return for Hughes is adequate. That's besides the point. The faithful have watched this team lurch from calamity to calamity over a half-century. Now, their captain has been traded away, the one player who made the team worth watching, and it was largely because they couldn't offer him any hope that things would change. Hughes' jersey should have gone up in the rafters. He should have been remembered as the greatest Canuck. Instead, he's become a symbol for everything that's wrong with this franchise.
Yeah,
perfectly put, Ed.
That's why Ed did this for as long as he did.
Exactly.
We're all still
he wrote
trying
a hell of a
to,
column for many years.
Yeah, hell of a column and a tweet right there, right? I mean, it's
okay.
It's all right there.
So, based on your conversation with Jim, I mean,
I'm making a montage.
That was unbelievable, that one.
I do that one myself.
It's because we moved.
I know.
I'm used to being over there.
He's getting used to the new digs
this new
here.
setup. The cameras are there. I don't know. Give me a break.
Okay, so the mic wasn't on, and it wasn't close enough to his mouth, and then he yanked the cord.
Well,
what more could happen with the mic? Ba-boom.
Yeah, anyway.
And I was just waiting for Mike. It's okay.
Listen. You guys are the professionals. You brought me here.
He's a newspaper reporter by trade.
You used to be one, Matt.
I know. It took me many years to figure out this mic thing. Comes with reps. Okay. So based on your conversation with Rutherford, I'm going to give you a name. You give me a traded or not traded.
Okay.
Start easy. Kiefer Sherwood.
Yes.
Drew O'Connor.
No.
Bluger and Forbert if they get healthy as UFAs.
Yes.
Okay. Garland.
No.
Demko.
I mean, I would say yes, but I don't think that happens.
Okay. Is there any name I'm missing? Is there any name of the existing?
Well,
we've had audience members ask us if there would in fact be guys now with trade protection who'd be willing to waive because they now see the direction of this franchise and it's going younger.
I mean, I have to think there are teams out there that look at Tyler Myers and say, "Hey, this guy's been pretty good. He's had a not a great season, but he's been pretty good the last couple of years, and he's a good character dude." I don't think he's got no move. He loves being here. I think in the end, he is the kind of guy that does want to see this turn into something successful. I think he's kind of come to grips with where he is at in his career. That said, if a team came along, was gunning for a Stanley Cup, and he was told, "Hey, you could go there and play there for a year," how would you feel? I mean, I wonder about that one. On the whole, though, I think he's
lives
not
in
a guy.
Kelowna in the summer, of course.
And
There's
his family
a family medical matter
here,
gets great care here that I know the Myers family wasn't anxious to move in the least.
No.
The last time he was approaching free agency. So I'd be surprised. I'd be stunned if it's by the deadline.
Yeah, I agree.
Honestly, I'd even be quite surprised if it's this summer. Next year, I could see that when the trade.
Yeah, the other one is Camp, I guess,
Camp.
Well, it's just the same as the Bluger category, like, depth centerman on a cheap. I mean, now he's on a cheap deal,
Yeah, and there were a couple other teams, if I'm not mistaken, who were kicking tires on him when the Leafs made him.
I suppose Niels Hoglander. I suppose.
Really?
I mean, I don't think so, but
okay.
I think he's a guy you want just because there's value there, and he's a player that he can put the puck in the net. So.
Yellow Dog Brewing has released Big Cup of Copper. It's an ale. 10 years deep, still keeping it smooth. Yellow Dog Brewing, the Jeff O'Neill Show, and the world-famous Sea Fox back for their 10th annual collaboration. And this year, Big Coppa's running the show. This copper ale pours rich golden brown with a smooth malt backbone, touch of caramel sweetness, and just enough hop bite to keep it real. It's balanced, bold, goes down easier than your favorite 90s beat. If you don't know, now you know. This beer is worth sipping. The Big Coppa Copper Ale from Neighborhood. And Yellow Duck, of course. Believe it or not, there's a game tonight that kind of would have been a big deal prior to Friday's trade. It is versus JT Miller and the New York Rangers at the world's most famous arena, Madison Square Garden. And we don't get Elias versus JT.
Nope. or Quinn versus JT.
Yeah. Liz was supposed to be back Sunday, wasn't he? Or they were hopeful he'd be back Sunday.
I don't know anymore. I mean, there's been a lot of hopeful lately of hopeful this and hopeful that, and that'd be nice,
It's going to be a bad look if he's back Friday. I mean, there is 48, 72 hours, and I leave open the possibility. Okay,
He's
but
got to take on Bo. That's what it is. That's his focus the whole time.
you think versus JT then versus
know
Bo? Besser missed the morning skate, but is going to play. What's going on with Atu Ratu? Because I know all the tank commanders and tankists are like, yes, he's performed well this year, and now he's fallen out of favor. But looking like a second straight game where they scratch Ratu to play Drew O'Connor at center ice. Can you explain that to me?
I can't. I mean, I actually quite enjoy Drew O'Connor for what he brings and what he is.
On the wing, I think he's a serviceable
heart,
bottom six forward. Yeah, he plays with pace.
Forechecks, plays with pace. There's a reason why
hands aren't terrible. He's,
but again, the hands are why he's not a top six winger.
Fair enough, but we lived and loved Yannick Hansen here for many, many years.
Yeah.
I mean, if Yannick had hands, he would have been a 30, 40 goal scorer, but we lived with his 15 to 20 some goals because he was such a dog on the bone, turning pucks over and doing all the right things.
And there's a concept there where that's all you need as a centerman, right? But in the end, Ratu there's been enough in Ratu's game. He's the best face-off guy, and there's been enough in his game. So is this coach's decision, or is he ill, or is he, so there's something there that is not quite.
It seems odd. Ogren with Sassone and Carlson. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble labeling Canucks lines these days because, who's the third line, who's the fourth line with all this. I guess that's the fourth line because he's playing Kampf with Garland and Nils Höglander. Baines skated in what we expect will be Besser's spot alongside Rossi and DeBrusk.
Yeah.
This morning. Then you look at the defense pairs that he's fashioned there. I think Thomas has just transcribed there. I would imagine that is Marcus Pettersson on the left and Philip Hronek on the right. Buium and Myers, DPD, and Tom Wilander. Here's something else I found interesting. Buium and Wilander are two of the 6 under-21 defensemen in the NHL, Patrick. The others being Matthew Schaefer, the sensational rookie with the New York Islanders. Sam Dickinson of the San Jose Sharks might still go to World Junior Camp. More on that later, actually, with Cam Robinson. Axel Sandin Pellikka, who the Detroit Red Wings, of course, selected with the pick they got from the Canucks for the Philip Hronek trade and was apparently part of the discussion on the Quinn Hughes trade last week. Levshunov, the big defenseman the Chicago Blackhawks took second overall a couple of years ago. And then there's the Pittsburgh defenseman Brunicky and Zane Parekh, but they're already at World Junior Camp. So for the moment, it's 6. At the high end, though, it's 8. So that's just how rare a profile that Buium is, right? You're playing in the National Hockey League, and you are not yet reached legal drinking age in most states. The other thing about Buium, my goodness, has he done some winning. If you're not familiar, I just learned this yesterday. 2 national championships at the University of Denver, 2 World Junior gold medals for the USA. We know how good the U.S. team has been at the World Juniors the last few years. And a World Senior Championship as well with the United States.
Yeah.
Played with Connor Garland at the Senior Worlds. So that is a fantastic resume of winning thus far for young Buium. One of the things we've discussed over the last couple of days, particularly yesterday, a little bit on the Friday emergency show too, where does Patrick Allvin stand in this organization right now, Peach? It very much seems like he's been emasculated. Bill Guerin even noted in his press conference that he called Allvin, was told to talk to Jim. They did 2 separate pressers on the trade on Friday. Look, Jim Rutherford has always had the final decision, but as you talked about earlier, like he was supposed to be more like a Yoda, an overseeing figure, while bringing up these young people, a first-time GM, in Patrick Alvine, first-time AGMs, Emily Castengate, Cami Granado, and this young organization. Remember his early days here? He's like, I have to adapt. The league has to adapt. The sport has to adapt. We need young people. I'm not going to be here forever.
Yep.
And now here we are just shy of his 4-year anniversary being hired by the Canucks. And it seems like he's doing more of the day-to-day than ever before. Where does that leave Alvine?
I mean, it's a great question. What is the future here? And I mean, Rutherford is very open. He knows he's not going to be here forever. And he's a guy that readily acknowledges he's in his late 70s, and his view on how the job is and what used to bother him has changed. And I certainly, his concept was, I want to bring along not just a team, but a group of executives, as you've just noted. And now we're sitting here going, yeah, I mean, this is the biggest move, certainly of his regime, and among the biggest moves in team history.
And Alvine didn't have time for it, or had his plate
busy. That to me, I mean,
I think I've asked you this on one of your hits before, but I'm going to go back there, and particularly after speaking to some people this weekend. Okay, the Canucks have swung the big trade here.
Yeah.
It is very unpopular in some quarters. I actually feel like the fallout wasn't as bad as it could have been.
No.
I think most people understand that it had to happen. I think most people are on board with the fact that they showed decisiveness and now seem to be, again, heading down a direction with a plan. And I think most people felt good about the return, all things considered, and the way they played it. But J-Pat was saying yesterday, there's 50 games left in this year. It's a long road.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of losses, which, again, for some right now, that is the goal, the aim, the mission, be as bad as you can, get as high a draft pick as you can. But for others, and particularly your season ticket buying public, they do want to be entertained. They don't want to watch tragic or pathos. The bottom line, Patrick, long way of saying, there will be some low ebbs in this season with how much time is still left. They may need to throw their public a scalp.
Sure.
Is it clearer than ever that it's going to be Patrick Alvine right now?
Well, it's certainly, the people talking, the people I would hear from around the league who were convinced that he wouldn't make it past Christmas, and here we are.
Yeah.
So
I'm told he had a one-on-one with Brian Burke, who was in town last week, a long lunch, is my understanding.
Who's he?
Patrick.
Yes.
Yeah. You've got Bill Guerin in Minnesota, who, of course, he served with alongside in Pittsburgh under Rutherford.
Yep.
You have Jason Botterill back as a general manager in Seattle, whom Patrick served with in Pittsburgh underneath Jim Rutherford. I just wonder if Jim Rutherford and Francesco Aquilini realize that, look, we may have to throw our public a scalp. We want to create some good news headlines around the losing, and we are sure to do some losing here. Everybody in this market loves Ryan Johnson. Ryan's a pretty good communicator. Maybe we hire Ryan Johnson or elevate him into a general manager role, and he can go on a bit of a media tour where he is basically helping the brand and putting a little bit more shine on the Canucks and the plan going forward, particularly given his experience of running the AHL team, which, of course, are defending reigning Calder Cup champions.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bit of
a theory I'm working on.
Yeah, I mean, I find myself thinking a little bit of remember the deck that got floated out from Mike Gillis when he was presented to the Penguins.
Yes.
That concept of a organization changed who the general manager, what their role really was. It wasn't what I think we had sort of long as the sort of the super boss conception of that there was a senior leader element to it. But there was still a president, that there was a sort of a senior official with a bunch of AGMs who had different roles and who did the, nuts and bolts kind of work.
It's a model that many teams have gone to.
Yeah, and it's a model many teams have gone to. So there would be a way to shift. You promote Ryan, I suppose, and he is not the conventional GM. I mean, Patrick Alvine really has not been the conventional GM because Rutherford has been here the whole time. That was inevitable. But as noted, he was still taking the calls, and yet he didn't take the call on this one.
Yeah. Help me out on this, because J-Pat and Blake and I were both kicking this around Friday and again yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So Rutherford did this Hughes deal tip to tail.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine that Jim had massive say, direction in the JT Miller trade and the Marcus Pettersson acquisition. Was Jim doing the like Carson Soucy for a fourth and get Dickinson off my roster? We'll give you a second. Was he doing those sorts of deals as well, or do you think for the most part those were Alvin constructions that Jim just rubber stamped?
I think most of what happened last year was exactly that. It was Alvin's vision. This is how we're going to do it. We're going to take this pick here and move it over there and turn it into Pettersson, and this is what we need to be.
You think that was an Alvin thing?
I do. I mean, there was sort of a past precedent to it, right? The Hronek deal was that. I've said it many times. I still believe there was another deal on the table at that moment that didn't happen.
I can't get over. Do you remember the end of season presser after they lost to the Oilers, where Alvin put his stake in the ground, saying we ain't achieved nothing yet, and we've got a grander vision.
Yes,
and just how he had the market in the palm of his hand. Finally, a general manager articulating a vision, a destination, Stanley Cup aspirations. The playoffs weren't good enough, and that everything was going to be about building that team. And he got Canucked. He ran up against factors that he couldn't overcome. Certainly the deadline last year, I think, was one of them, when you held on to Brock Besser, when you held on to expiring contracts and didn't get assets for them because we knew his MO was, look, the deadline is the deadline. We either got you under contract or we need to move you. That's smart managing, and for whatever reason, he got big-footed there. And the next thing you know, he's seemingly just diminished and diminished and diminished in stature and in say inside Canucks Sports Entertainment since.
Well, yeah, and I mean, in the end, if you look back, or you look at what Rutherford,
and I feel bad for the guy because he
do.
seems like a good fellow, and
I mean, and you're right, he had it, and then it all fell, it blew up on them. They made some choices. Were some of those Rutherford initiatives, or were some of them not, like how does it all shake out? I mean, in the end, the choices this group made, and that's certainly always been the presentation. It's, it is Alvin, but it's Alvin and Rutherford in the group. Mm-hmm. Some of those things blew up on them, and now it's only gotten worse because you've traded away your captain and the best defenseman in team history.
Are they a better team after the Hughes trade? With three roster players for one, including that second line center, and a guy who can hopefully, and for the most part, replace Hughes at least as a power play quarterback, if not as a 30-minute defenseman.
I mean,
not many of them.
They now have Marco Rossi. I mean, once Pettersson's back, you now have Marco Rossi playing as your second line center instead of David Kampf. So that alone means your forward group is better.
Mm-hmm. And that was Blake's point, is when you look at the upgrade there, and even if Ogrim gives you something, like those two things in conjunction, but especially that second line center, might actually be bigger than the difference between Hughes and Buium, at least on the offensive side of the puck. We'll see if Buium can defend.
We'll see how. I mean, the thing we forget, and partly it becomes circumstance. Like the things were going so poorly defensively that Hughes was being asked to do everything, and now they don't have that.
Yeah.
So there is that. You're not gonna have Buium playing 30 minutes, 28 minutes a night, right?
No.
So that's the other thing to watch now, though, is that difference in the 6 minutes or whatever it is that Hughes was filling that now gets portioned out to other defensemen. What is the long term?
Boy, I mean, I would love to see DP Elias Pettersson take up more of those minutes. I've been saying all year I was anticipating that he would be more of a made NHL man this year. I don't think they loved. His reporting to training camp. It seemed like right from the jump they were putting him with prospects and basically dangling a carrot and saying, no, you're not fully formed yet. And let's face it, he has struggled this year. Both Petterssons, defensemen. There's three. Both the defensemen have struggled.
Yeah.
Lastly, Peach, at least in this block, 2 weeks tomorrow, the Canadian Olympic roster is due.
Yeah.
New Year's Eve. Come quickly here. North Vancouver's Connor Bedard is hurt and on IR. Now, I was nay on Bedard, then I was yay on Bedard, and now I'm wondering where he's going to be physically in February. And I'm wondering that because I happened to catch something that Ken Hitchcock, who, needless to say, has been on some winning benches and Canadian benches in the past, said on Jason Greger's show in Edmonton last week. And we've got the clip, or we've got the quote. We're going to bring it up here. Here it is. The 2006 team, that was the Torino team that failed, lost to Switzerland. Martin Gerber.
Yeah.
Was built on loyalty from the 2004 World Cup. The 04 team was a special group, and we paid respect by bringing those players back. When we came to training camp, we learned some of the players were banged up and hurt. In hindsight, the mistake was bringing guys who were banged up to Italy. So the loyalty problem, or the loyalty issue, Hitchcock didn't necessarily have a problem with because it was a special group. And I think you can also argue the Four Nations team last year was a special group. It was bringing guys in who were nicked, who couldn't be 100% of themselves.
Yeah.
And, of course, the tricky part for Doug Armstrong and the Canadian brass, these guys are not going to volunteer that, right, Peach? Like, because they all want to play for Canada. They all want to wear that maple leaf, win a gold medal, sing their anthem on the biggest winter stage in all of sport, right?
I think you give me a call because I'm covering the Olympics for Post-Media. Oh. I'm going to be covering hockey. So you give me a call. How do you wait? But that's the great point, right?
Yeah.
Because there's two dynamics, right? You've got your stars, right? You need to know, like your stars, the core of that team last year is going to be the core of your Olympic team, right?
Yep.
So
we're talking about that handful of spots
you
that
can
are
accept. You can accept a less than 100% Connor McDavid.
Of course you can.
But if Seth Jarvis or Anthony, guys we've talked about, right? Guys on the fringe, how do you weigh that? And so
and Bedard is certainly on that fringe. I think
certainly
you
in
would
that
argue,
fringe, right? Absolutely. Like the fact that it actually astounded me. I went away, admittedly, right? But when I sat down and looked at it and realized he had 44 points in 31 games. Mm-hmm. Macklin Celebrini, by the way, 47 points in 33. It's astounding. Both those guys. That's what you need, right? Scoring is what matters. They can play the game. They can all do the bits. You just bring them in and you make your team as good as it can be.
And I have always supported the notion of bring the best players. Like, make sure you have 4 or 5 forwards who are comfortable killing penalties. Mm-hmm. Although even Mike Babcock flipped that on its head in Sochi. You remember the great conversation he had with Alain Vigneault after an NHL game that season prior to the Olympics when AV was with the Rangers. Babcock went up to him and said, "Hey, Alain, have you ever thought about putting Rick Nash on the penalty kill?" And Alain was like, "Well," and the next thing you know, Rick Nash was on the penalty kill in Sochi, and that team was suffocating defensively. But I've always believed that so long as you have 4 or 5 penalty killing forwards, and needless to say, 4 defensemen who are comfortable penalty killing as well. Mm-hmm. Blitz the opposition with offense. Don't worry about bringing that bottom 6 profile player, character, all that.
Chris Draper.
Rob Zamner.
Yeah.
Put them on their heels, shift after shift after shift, relentlessly. There's no break. Oh, great, we get their 4th line. It's Celebrini, Bedard, and that fear of God that really only Canada, you could argue maybe the U.S. is getting there, but that fear of God that really only 12 Canadian forwards can present the opposition in international hockey. I'm interested to see what Armstrong and Cooper think and believe. I think you've already got some guys there from Tampa. You mentioned Cirelli, Point being another one who's already on the team, having a bad year, that could serve as those penalty-killing bottom 6 character folks. So, man, I would really like to fill out the rest of this roster with goal scoring, because here's the other thing, Peach. That defense, in conjunction with that goaltending, I'm not sure I've seen a better collection of Canadian forwards than what people are mocking up on this team.
Yeah.
I'm damn sure I've seen a better collection of Canadian defensemen and goaltenders than what people are mocking up on this team. The one way to go about it would be, take some defensively minded forwards, mind the gate, all that. The other would be outscore your bloody problems.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, I like the group, but the defense core is not amazing.
No.
You're talking about some contracts, Taves, Bakar, Harley, Parayko, Sanheim,
Yeah.
Doughty,
Taves and McCarr, I'm quite like because
Morrissey,
they have
Montour,
the chemistry, of
Theodore,
course, in Colorado.
Uyghur, Schaefer,
Holy cow, the Schaefer kid.
Anyway, but that's the point, right? Like it's just finding that group, and I think the fact that maybe helps them. They don't have to be so dead. I mean,
Yep.
Is this guy, like I said, especially with the sort of elite group, like you can deal with a diminished Cale Makar, but like could you, if
Yes.
you know what I mean, like,
But it diminished
but if you all of a sudden
Colton
get
Parayko.
yeah,
Yeah.
like
I don't know.
how loyal are you to diminished exactly, and like honestly, how loyal are you to diminished Drew Doughty, right? Like,
Yeah, ditto.
as much as he's been a great servant to this country and to this national team and been an incredible story going back to 2010.
The single youngest player ever selected to a Canadian senior men's national hockey team, Drew Doughty.
Yeah, and but like
But
that.
you
But
got to
that
know
is
when to see. It's the Wally Bonner rule. You get out a year early rather than a year
But
late.
you look at that team in the end too, is you recognize that you've got to go there. Like Doughty was a brilliant choice in the end, and like kudos to that management team for recognizing that this was a guy to bring. I mean, remember he came, and Taves too. Like both of them came as kind of the young guys, right? And then they became key players because they're really good at hockey. Pick the best players, pick the guys who are really good at hockey, and you will be fine. And don't overthink it.
Let's get to today's menu. It is brought to you by our friends at Greta, and on Saturday we're having a party there, a holiday watch party as we take in some hockey. It is December 20th, doors 3 p.m., puck drops at 4 p.m. This is Greta at 50 West Cordova. Wear an ugly sweater or your holiday best. You don't have to pay for this. However, they are having a little bit of trouble with their typical reservation system. So if you want a table, we're telling you, or book your spot, it's all free. Text 604-256-4022. Let them know your name and how many are coming. That's 604-256-4022. $333 for certain 12-ounce glasses of beer. You get your house shots for $333. And the menu, nachos, wings, Greta Burger. Will be giving away gift cards for the arcade to everybody who shows up. And our MC, David Quadrelli of Canucks Army and Canucks Convo, Master of Ceremonies, typically has some trivia on the go and some other fun and games. We'll see you at Greta on Saturday. Again, doors at 3, puck drop at 4 p.m.
I'm just laughing about the time I think we were on, Jay Pat and I were in Rink Wide, and we had a live hit from Quads on the scene. It was the old sort of breakfast television. I'm here at the so-and-so car dealer, and Dave couldn't hear a single thing and just said what he could, and it was a really marvelous
Was he
moment.
breathless? Like, was he Matthew Chance reporting
No,
from
he
the
was
border
perfect.
of Pakistan?
He nailed it.
No?
He nailed it. It was really well done. So there you go.
On the show today, Cam Robinson is going to join us from Elite Prospects. We will go through all the component parts of the Hughes deal with Cam, Buium and his upside, and the downside, actually. Like, if he doesn't hit, what is he as an NHL player? Talk about Marco Rossi, Liam Ogren, as well as what could be available with that second first-round pick that they have now, beyond, of course, their domestic first-rounder, plus Braden Coots at World Junior Camp also, and Max Sassone and his 2-year deal, extension for Max Sassone, $1 million per. He stood to be a Group 6 free agent, Peach, because he was over 25 years old and less than 80 games played. I like this move. He's filled in at center, may ultimately be a winger in the NHL, but I like the pace he plays with. I like the fact that he looks like he belongs.
Yeah.
He plays with confidence. It's a nice deal for Max and for the Canucks.
I will pump my own tires here and point out that I did bring him up, I think, not last season, but the season before, early on this show, saying he was a guy that was interested in seeing what the long-term potential is there. And realistically, he should be your fourth-line center.
Yep.
He's not amazing on face-offs, but he does okay. And there's enough offense there, and there's some jump in his game, and he's obviously a very bright guy. I mean,
He's comfortable on the puck.
and he's just exactly that.
Yeah.
Comfortable on the puck is a really nice way to put it, because you look at sort of the alternative. I mean, does Niels Oman ever look comfortable?
No,
on the
exactly.
puck,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, there's a lot of fourth-line guys, even in today's day and age, when everybody really has to be able to skate and play with the puck, that are still not, great as puck carriers.
Yeah.
Hell, you even got some wingers who just, they would rather just be short area guys as opposed to having the puck on stick.
Yeah.
for extended periods or in open ice. So we'll get to all of that with Cam. Then after that, Leah John of Vancouver, she earned her LPGA Tour card last week at the final qualifying event. Delightful interview, a real up-and-comer. She made the U.S. Women's Open last year, and we had talked about at the time, there is a really promising group of young Canadian golfers that are right on the cusp of breaking through and making it in the professional world. Leah is one of them. We saw that on the weekend as well with A.J. Ewart of Coquitlam winning that final Corn Ferry PGA Tour qualifying event. Serge Adams Svensson finished tied for second there as well. We're starting to see some breakthroughs here in Canadian golf. So Leah will join us. Full disclosure, we did that interview yesterday, so that's J-Pat and me on the interview with Leah. Later in the program, we'll talk about the huge Thursday night football game in Seattle, Rams and Seahawks, some playoff implications and clinching scenarios at play there. As well, a friend and colleague of ours into another Hall of Fame. And we have big trouble surrounding a Canadian hockey team. We'll get to that story as well. All that coming up on the show. Time now for our Bet365 bets of the day. I got a late over cover in the Miami-Pittsburgh game last night. I had mentioned how the line was going down, hit 42 points, and I'm like, I realize these teams aren't exactly shoot the lights out, but that's a little low for me. Give me over. I sweated it out till the end. Alas, they got it done. Today, I'm looking at this Canucks-Rangers game from Madison Square Garden. We know Jake DeBrusk is streaky. Scored Sunday, points in 2 straight. No Elias. Maybe he needs or feels compelled to shoot the puck more, especially on the power play. He pays plus 20 as an anytime goal scorer, so I'm liking the value there.
You know me, I don't do a lot of this, and the only gambling I really do is fantasy football, and I've long had the principle being don't overthink your quarterbacks. There's obviously the superstars, but if you're smart and you play patient, you will find great guys like, amazingly, this year's great MVP candidate, Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford, long been a member of my various fantasy football teams, obviously took a flyer in him training camp because we thought his back was going to collapse. But here he is, heading into that Rams-Seahawks matchup on Thursday night. I sat back and I looked at what Bet365 was throwing him in terms of passing yards, and they are paying $240 for him to get more than 250 passing yards this week. And if you look at his last 4 games, it is 368, 281, 243, obviously just under there with 273.
Now, no Devontae Adams, so looks like he's out, but Nakua has been outstanding.
Listen, Puka's been amazing, and this is just a guy that likes to throw the football and always has. And I am absolutely saying put your money on Matthew Stafford to get more than 250 passing yards this week.
I think the pill will be in the air.
Yes.
Absolutely. It's been tough to run on that Seahawks front as well. This segment, a presentation of Bet365, whatever your bet. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app, get in on the game, use code NATION when doing so. Must be 19 or older. Please play responsibly. Cam Robinson coming up next. Sekeres Price from the historic Wall Center, and this next segment is brought to you by your Pacific Toyota dealers and the Toyota Prius plug-in hybrid. This is a spirited electrified ride built for enthusiasts, a 5th-generation hybrid powertrain from the originators at Toyota. Superior battery, you can go weeks without having to stop for gas. No charging anxiety. You charge as you drive. You don't need the charger at home. Just a regular plug-in overnight. 2-liter engine, it gets hearts pumping, spacious, loaded with safety features, clean, navigable, intuitive dash. Plus, this is a handsome car. Spectacular lines. It's got the profile of a sports car. You preheat the cabin via the app, no idling, and then those fold-down back seats. Fits your golf clubs, fits your hockey gear, even goalie gear. And right now, you can lease a 2026 Prius plug-in hybrid SE from $109 weekly, 3.99% APR for 64 months, $3,300 down. $3,300 down. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Pacific Toyota dealer today as we welcome in Cam Robinson, the director of everything at Elite Prospects. Say hello to Patrick. I know you. It's the Get Along guys.
Hey, buddy.
What's up, Pete? How you doing, big guy?
Oh, hi. I'm back from Mexico.
These are like
feeling
besties here.
Feeling great. Oh, yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh,
We have lots- I don't
we go
see the
way
set.
back.
How often do you guys chat?
Well, we haven't chatted in a while. Here's partly what's happened is that because the kids are both in school now, I don't have this half-hour walk home from daycare where I used to call some various people, and Cam was on my list of people that I would call while I would walk and say, "What are you hearing? What are you thinking?" And
I miss the calls. I miss them.
I'll bring them back.
There we go. Please do.
Our first opportunity to talk to you, my friend, since Friday in the big Quinn Hughes trade. Give me your assessment, your report card.
Oh boy, I wasn't prepared. I thought we'd be talking all about the Max Sasson extension.
He is on the list.
Okay, wonderful. Yes. Oh boy. Hey, I was trying to play catch up there. I was on the ice coaching my daughter's U7 team, and so I stepped off, and there's no cell service in the rink, and I was about 40 minutes behind, and I had to. I saw you were texting me there, Matt, and I had a whole bunch of people asking, can Ugrin play center? What's going on? I was like, oh boy, I think I missed something big here. So yeah, I mean, it's been talked about ad nauseum. You know, you don't win a trade when you lose the best player in the deal, and you know, doubly so when you lose arguably the greatest player in franchise history. But as far as the return goes, I think you'd be hard pressed to find a better one in this situation, especially knowing that it's a year and a half for Quinn Hughes and not a 7-year extension tied in with it. And then you could have really gone for the moon. I think the deal hinges almost entirely on Zeev Buium, how he develops. Now, personally, I love Zeev Buium. I've been able to see him live sporadically over the last 3 seasons. He's a stud. He's an absolute stud. He should develop into, you know, that workhorse number one defenseman for you. Obviously, you know, best case scenario there, but, you know, he has explosive skating. I've always loved, he's a shifty downhill mover where he can make guys miss coming down from the point. He activates intelligently. And I think his defensive game, it's been burgeoning. He's a confident kid. He wants to be on the ice in high pressure moments. He wants to play 30 minutes a night. You know, I've talked to David Carl, like his time at Denver. He didn't come into that program even being projected as a first-round pick. And then all of a sudden, you know, he developed into their top defenseman. They won a national champion. He was won everything. So it's the deal hinges on him. And the other pieces are just like you hope that you get some good stuff there as well. But it all comes down to Zeev.
It's funny. I didn't realize till yesterday he's a serial winner. I mean, it's maybe
He
not
is.
Thomas Mueller just yet, but 2 natties at Denver, 2 World Junior goals, a World Championship as well. Okay.
U18, I believe. Yeah.
So I talked to a scout on Friday who thought the upside on Buium could be someone like Josh Morrissey or Jackson Lacombe, a no doubt top pair defenseman who drives a lot of offense, but is also good enough defensively to hold down those heavy minutes. He thought, like, if things went very poorly for him, at the very least, you're looking at a Shane Gostisbehere type of defenseman who brings you a lot of points, even if he isn't necessarily an every situation top minutes type guy. And he thought the middle ground was something around a Morgan Riley type player, West Vancouver. And Morgan's been an outstanding player for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I saw you, good Twitter debate last night between yourself and Mr. Drance. Give me the high end, give me the mid ground, give me the sort of low end on Buium as he develops here.
Yeah, you know, Thomas and I, we were just having some fun there, and people are jumping in too. But you know, as a middle ground, a Morgan Riley, I think it's fair. I think that you know, if that's an average outcome where things didn't go totally well, you know, like you said, Riley's had a great career. You know, for spurts has been, you know, a pretty high end offensive guy and just kind of maybe lacking a little bit on the defensive side of things. I do see more in that Josh Morrissey, Zach Werenski type level. He's such a great skater. He's so poised, and I think he has that compete level that the defense is gonna come along with him. And I don't know if you guys remember Josh Morrissey wasn't an elite defender early in his career either. He had to build that up, as most of these guys do. And so you point at a 20-year-old, a recently turned 20-year-old, and be like, the defense is lacking at the NHL level. Well, it's like he's the same draft class as, Sam Dickinson and Zane Parekh and all these guys that are also trying to find their way in the NHL and are struggling. He's ahead of them already too. So I think he has that true number one defensive upside. And then, maybe if, you don't quite hit it, you're a good 2 on that top pairing and a top power play guy. Personally, I think he's, arguably better than Shane Gostisbehere is already as an all-around player. Maybe that's a bit of a hyperbole just because Goss is a long-term vet, but I do think the upside is much, much higher. And that's what makes me so excited for this deal. There was all those kind of talked about trade packages coming out of Detroit or Philadelphia or, even Carolina with Nikishin. I think they did the best that they could possibly do outside of the Islanders weren't giving up Matty Schaefer. But if we're talking about young 20 and under defensemen, there's not many I would take over Zeev Buium.
I found myself thinking back to the 2022 draft where you and I broke that, and the debate, for the Canucks at 15, the sort of Likermaki-Ogren debate, and now he's here, and we only see 3 goals in the NHL. What do you make of where he's at? Could he? I mean, is this a repeat of Lukas Reichel, or could he be more than that?
Oh, yeah. I think apples and oranges for Lukas Reichel. So, at the time I had him 8th on my board, and I had Likermaki, really, I think, 15 or 16 or something like that. And, from my understanding, there were some NHL teams, including Minnesota, that had Ugrin very, very high up in their board, potentially even the top 10. So when they got him outside of the top 15 or wherever they ended up snagging him, I think that felt like a win. And, I still feel like long-term that take of mine is going to age well, that I think he's going to be a more impactful player than Jonathan Likermaki. Likermaki has that one-shot goal scoring ability that is so rare that's what you want. And that's what he needs to bring to be effective, where Ugrin, he's not a burner, but he builds speed through this really he's this powerful stride. He's almost like angry at the ice when he skates. Like he's really digging in and driving through it. He gets pucks to the net and he shields really well and protects them really well. He can be a high intensity forechecker. He's a leader. He plays heavy. He has a strong defensive game built in. So, maybe I oversold his offensive upside just a hair in his draft year. And maybe now the projection is more like that middle 6 play driving guy with upside of 45 to 60 points, kind of in that range. And then, if it doesn't work out, then he's going to be a bottom 6 guy who can bring all those elements as well. And now you nudge down that point projection into that 30 to 45 point range. But I think they're going to really appreciate the player and the quality of person, the leader, just a hard worker. I think he's going to have a long NHL career.
It's interesting here you mentioned leader, because that's actually something that came up when I was talking to Jim Rutherford yesterday. It was that he talked about how all 3 of these guys, I mean, we heard coming in, these are good dudes, like in terms of sort of media terms, but like he brought up, we need good character guys. All 3 of these guys are quality character people. Like that's really important to us. I think we know that with a guy like Verlander or whatever, but like to bring those guys in and just sort of reset the group clearly is part of the project here, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And I think, I forget if it was Jason there who asked it, that said, is there a culture issue in Vancouver?
Yeah.
And it was kind of scoffed at, where it's like, well, I mean, look back at everything that's happened. It's hard to really argue. So yes, bringing in 3 guys that are highly competitive, they want to get better. They take pride in both sides of the puck, playing on both sides of the puck. Marco Rossi, he, not the biggest player, but you're hard pressed to find someone who works as hard as he does and takes as much pride in his game. And then also has the high end hockey sense, the strong puck protection, the great speed, dangerous playmaker. You put him with good players, he's going to produce too. But, everyone I've spoken to right back to his draft year, and then, in Minnesota as well, is a consummate pro, first to the rink, last to the rink, takes every rep as an opportunity to get better. Even as a 23, 24-year-old in the NHL, is still pushing the envelope every season to get better. And then, even looking at his past, where he lost a whole season due to COVID, where there was moments where he didn't think he was going to make it. He thought he was going to die or let alone get back to playing hockey. So he's gone through some things, and I think that perspective is going to only, contribute further to him becoming a very real asset for the Canucks.
On Ogren, Cam, or Ugrin, if that's how it's pronounced.
Yeah.
So the 7 points in 47 NHL games, the 3 goals, he's dipped toe in 3 seasons now in the NHL. At what point would you start to get concerned that there's just not enough bottom line and he's sort of blending into the sea of Granlunds? How much runway does he have left here?
I think there's still plenty of runway. He's 3 years post draft. Hasn't seen much opportunity at the NHL level to play with good players. In Minnesota, like he was seeing between, 6 and 9 minutes a night on the fourth line, defensive zone draws. Like he wasn't put in positions to succeed where, a Lekkerimäki, when he gets brought up, it's like, well, you better play him in the top 6 because that's where he's going to be useful. Ugrin's going to be able to fill, spots throughout your lineup, but I don't think we can really judge his offensive upside until you put him in positions to succeed. His AHL numbers have been strong. His numbers back in Sweden were always strong, internationally, the junior level, the SHL. He's when you give him a chance, he can make things happen. But that said, it's like you shouldn't expect him to break out and become a 75-point scorer. I don't think that that's likely at this point. You never want to put a glass ceiling on a young player, but I think that the Canucks probably were pretty familiar with his game when they were watching Djurgården, when they were scouting and trying to make that decision in 2022. And so I'm sure they had a really big book on him and good buddies with Lekkerimäki too. So bringing those two, that familiarity there as well.
Would a stint in Abbotsford be the worst thing?
No, absolutely not. He's 21. I think that would just be fine to go back down there and play first line minutes or top 6 minutes and kind of flesh out the system that they want to play here in Vancouver and then come on back up. I think we'll be looking at, judging him and his true upside here in the next year and a half sort of thing, is that if he's not able to really start to find the back of the net and put up points in 26, 27, then you're like, okay, we're probably looking at a depreciating asset.
Had a scout tell me on Rossi, say, look, he's a second-line center, but he's not a second-line center like Bo Horvat or Ryan Kessler were second-line centers. 5'9", 170 or 182 pounds. Cam, is he a bona fide second-line center on a contending team, or on a contending team is he pushed down the lineup or he plays the wing because of his size?
I've said this before when it was rumored that the Canucks were interested in bringing him in, and we found out later what that ask was, and we'd heard it was a first plus of top prospect, is that I do believe that he is a bona fide number 2 center. Just ideally you would have him behind a heavy number 1. So if you have him behind Sasha Barkov, you're feeling pretty good about yourself. That's not too bad. You have him behind Elias Pettersson, who doesn't play a heavy game and is also a little slight, a little under physicality there. The weight isn't behind him. Then it's like, you better have a real heavy third line center in that regard to play that matchup role. But I do, he just turned 24 years old. He already has a 25 goal, 60-point season under his belt. And then full year this year, he's on pace to break that as well. He's missed a little bit of time. I think that he could, I said the whole deal hinges on Buium, but I think that people maybe are forgetting that this kid is still developing, and is that we could see a player that pushes into that 70, 75, 80 point realm if you surrounded him with good players. Now, the issue in Vancouver is that the good players will end up playing with Pettersson. They don't have enough to spread it around. But in 3 years, maybe. Could you see a Gavin McKenna on his wing looking pretty good? That could be a lot of fun. An Ivar Stenberg, something like that. Maybe they could find that chemistry and build together long term. I think that the upside is still growing with Rossi, and I do believe that he's a true number 2 center. It's just in this situation, it's not ideal because Pettersson's your 1.
So what do you think? What do you think happens next now? There's been all the talk about Sherwood. I was talking with someone, and they're like, I don't know. I might now want to actually think about keeping Sherwood. That really the focus should be getting off Kane, getting that sort of player off your roster, because he blocks. Not only does he sort of take up space from a guy like Ugrin, but there's also just the kind of player he is. We've talked about character and just what he does or doesn't bring to that room, and that might be something you want to get away from your kids.
Can't we do both? Can't Patrick Allvin shouldn't be that busy anymore, right? Yeah. It's that
he's been busy on.
Maybe too busy to make the biggest trade in franchise history. That was certainly noteworthy when Jim Rutherford mentioned that, but
almost like it was a euphemism for Jimmy's taking back control here. Anyways, go ahead.
Yeah. I think you absolutely move Sherwood. You have culture carriers under contract already, and Connor Garland and Tyler Myers and guys like that. They kind of probably missed their window when he was red hot, if you wanted to sell him early and try to really capitalize on that. But I think it'll be just fine as long as he can find his game and at least play average production wise anyways, leading up to the deadline, because, prices end up getting nudged up as they get closer to him, because he's such a unique profile with the way he can play physical too. So you got to come out of something with, like a first round pick or, a second and a decent prospect, or, a young U23 roster player that you feel good about. Kane, sure, get him off the books. However you can do that. Basically, you want this team to be all under 30. And, some other things that are just floating around in my head as I've been thinking about this all week is that, when Rutherford said, or Alvin said that, they had an indication from Quinn, a year and a half ago that it was unlikely he was going to sign. And so, I love how they wouldn't say the word rebuild. And then all of a sudden they're like, this will help with our rebuild that we've been doing now for so long. Well, if they knew or had a good idea that Quinn wasn't coming back, it's like, why did they take that first that they got in the Miller trade and immediately flip it for Marcus Pettersson? Yeah. Why did they go and get Evander Kane? Why did they sign Kevin Lankinen when they could have been like, we got Artur Silovs here. He's young and he has upside. All these things are just coming into my mind, which concern me for where the direction will be going now. And when you bring up like maybe they keep Sherwood, it's like, no, they should probably move off of him, and they should probably be exploring moving off of Connor Garland too. Like the guys that you're probably not going to get rid of are Pettersson because his contract, and Besser because you just signed him. And I think that's a culture carrier that you can keep around long term.
Did you have something further?
I was just going to say on the 30-year-old note, it is worth noting that you're right. Myers, Kane, 35, 34 coming into the season. Myers turns 36 in February, but, Kampf, Lankinen, Sherwood, that just turned 30. You got Pettersson and Garland turning 30 next year. They're very close to, as you said, skewing towards that younger roster that they really say they want to have.
Yeah. I think there are complications with an Evander Kane trade. I believe NHL teams have a question about something from Evander's most recent past in Edmonton. I believe I'm workshopping something that I'm going to get to in the coming days, gentlemen. Cam, we'll ask you about it next Tuesday. We'll ask you about it on your hit next week. So we'll save no more there, just because I got a number of other topics I want to get to with Cam. Okay. Buddy, this Minnesota first-round pick, as it stands right here, right now, would be number 27 overall in the NHL draft. Now, could get worse if they make the conference final. Could get better if they lose some games from here. The Elite Prospects Consolidated Draft Rankings has Sarnia Sting centerman Alessandro Diorio as the number 27. I see the Elite Prospects 32 has JP Hurlburt, who's a forward doing great things with the Kamloops Blazers, right in and around number 27. You tell me how much quality should be available to them at number 27. We're here. It's a good draft. Spell that out to me.
Yeah, it's a pretty good draft. The top is definitely, it's pretty exciting, which is where that main pick is going to be coming from. I'm going to go ahead and say that I don't think it's going to be in the 27 range. They're coming up against Colorado and Dallas. Like it's going to be difficult for them to really push into that Western Conference final. So I think Canucks fans can certainly hope that it's going to be, closer to 20. And then as you inch into that kind of 22, 20, 18 range, now you're getting a little more excited about the talent there. Now you're looking at guys like Vigo Bjork, Ryan Rubrick, and Nikita Klepov, these more talented offensive players, where a guy like Rubrick is like super talented offensively and a big body, but lacks a little of the jam and the engine. If you do want to talk about guys in that, pushing into that late first, JP Hurlburt is dominating the West this year after making the jump from the USHL, the program last year. Doesn't maybe have the most translatable game, but boy, oh boy, he knows how to play offense for sure. A guy like Caleb Maholtra, whose stock is really rising. Probably, early on in the season, it was likely he was going to be there. At this point now, he's probably as a center in a center light draft, he's probably gone. But another kid out of the West, Liam Ruck. You're hoping to get a guy who's going to be able to play in your top 9 if you're picking there, or maybe maybe a 4 or 5 defenseman if you're lucky. But yeah, you're certainly hoping that it's inching closer to 20. And then Adam Novotny's going to be hanging around. Daxon Rudolph maybe. Ryan Lynn, the shine is starting to come off him a little bit, at least in public perceptions. Like, is there a world that he slides into the late teens? I think it's possible. And then that's a home run for me. So ideally the Canucks would, number one, hold on to that pick, and Minnesota would get bounced in the first. And maybe they could get themselves another first rounder and like a Sherwood deal or something like that. And now all of a sudden the cupboards can be replenished pretty quickly, right? all you've got Vilander and Zeev Buium, two 20-year-old defensemen that are looking like they're going to be big-time players for you in the top four for a long time. Lekkerimäki and Ugrin, right? You've got Braden Coots coming, and then if you could add 3 first-rounders, all of a sudden you've got assets. Now you've got things to get excited about.
Braden Coots, how's he doing at World Junior Camp?
Yeah, I'm sadly I'm not there, obviously, but I've heard good things. I think he's getting another spin on the second line, this time on the wing today at camp. They're, like I said, they're going to be trying these kids in all different positions because they have so many centers. So Caleb Desnoyers was on the wing, now Coots is on the wing. They're going to try to see which of these guys can be the Swiss Army knife for us, that if we need, can come up from that 13th or 14th forward spot and really help out in different situations. And that's where I think Coots' game is perfect for. I was talking to an NHL scout yesterday, and, I'd shared that, I think that Coots and Desnoyers and Carter Bear are kind of the bubble guys to make that roster. And he was like, Coots shouldn't be a bubble guy. Like, he should be in the top 12. And I was like,
great. He'd
probably be on my top 12, but at the very least, he'd be my 13th forward, where you can jump him up. He could be your third line center. Jump him up. He can be your second line winger. Like, he can play all those roles, and he's a leader, defensively responsible, has good offense. Put him on my team all day.
When are they? I know it's not a selection camp, but when are they selecting the final team here?
So I was told that they were going to wait until December 22nd to see if they get any NHLers back, any more NHLers back. And so they'll have to have their 24 roster set by then anyway. So we've got, what is that, about a little less than a week. I did promote some optimism there that they might be able to get another NHLer back there, probably Sam Dickinson.
Gonna ask about
a little
him,
bit of cold water has been poured on that from a couple of sources, but nothing is for sure at this point yet too. So you hope that San Jose does lend him out, but if they don't, it's good news for a kid like Keaton Verhoff.
Lastly, Max Sasson has a new 2-year deal, $1 million per year. He's playing center for the Vancouver Canucks, and he's an NHL regular, I think, at this point, right? Tell me what you thought of his season and what you think of the extension.
I mean, it's good for him, and I saw he was Danny Milstein and him were out for dinner and drinks there, celebrating it, and I mean it's a great story, and it's one of those ones where it's like you don't always have to be a first round pick. You don't always have to be the guy that's making all the international teams and all the way up. Is that sometimes you can take the long, hard road and you can still make it. And so I've been cheering for that guy for a while. And I think that he's earned every inch that he's got out of this too. And so to get a multi-year deal, a one-way deal, making $1 million a year, it's like, I take my hat off to him. I'm happy for him.
Awesome stuff, Cam. You've made us smarter again this week, and you got a chance to work with your BFF here.
Yeah, lovely.
Until next week, buddy.
Great stuff. Thanks, boys.
Sekeres and Price from the historic Wall Center. And Jeff, you and I are both golf aficionados. We absolutely love playing the game. We love watching the game, and we love following the progress of Canadian professionals. And we brought you the story last week. There was sensational news in the world of women's professional golf as Leah John of Vancouver qualified for the LPGA Tour this coming season. And she joins us now back home here in British Columbia. Leah joins us now. How you doing? Congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you. It's nice to be home. Good place to be. I'm doing awesome.
Tell us about what this means to you, Leah.
Well, lots of athletes say this, but it's a goal that you've had since you were really young. And you never know if you're truly going to obtain it. And then one day you do. And it's pretty cool. It's also a huge celebration, not only for myself, but everybody who's been on the journey with me. And so I'm also really excited for them, my parents, my coaches, and even teachers at school, everybody to share in that. But it's taking a while for it to settle in. It's still a shock, and, your life has changed. But, I think about, what they say. It's like, then after all the craze is done, then you ask yourself, okay, what's for dinner? Or, it's like at the same time, you're also still yourself. But it's been awesome. It's so exciting. I'm just enjoying the best Christmas gift ever.
Yeah. Tell us about how you got involved in this. Grew up in Kitsilano. Take it from there. How'd you get involved in this sport?
Yes, I grew up in Kits, and both my parents play golf. My dad is a huge fanatic, and anyways, it just was a family sport that we did together, and we also went away to warm places over Christmas, so lots of access to golf. And I started taking lessons when I was 9 at Marine Drive with Kara Cosman, and Marine Drive is known for its junior program. And anyways, I just kept playing it. I played a lot of sports growing up, and I, for some reason, thought golf was my favorite. Little did I know it's the absolute hardest sport. And and then I had the privilege of playing at Nevada. I took a gap year when I graduated high school to develop more, and things just kept progressing from there.
Well, let's get to the decision about the University of Nevada, where you won 4 times and really towards the end of your senior year, really peaking. I mean, the game was in great shape there to launch you professionally. And full disclosure, Leah's dad, Jason, and I are buddies, so I've been hearing about her progress for years. But your dad told me, like, you were like 1,500 plus on the SATs. Like, you had a bunch of academic opportunities, Ivy League schools, even across the pond, but you decided that you were going to give pro golf a shot alongside your academics. Tell us that part.
Yes, I was, I like school. I do. And so I did have some, other schools reach out to me, but the biggest thing was I really wanted to take a gap year and, like I said, develop and take that time there. And my coach at Nevada was really supportive of it. Not to say that other coaches weren't, but just her in particular was supportive of it. And when I went and visited, I felt like the college had everything I needed to be successful as a professional golfer. Like, can you play on the team? Who are the people you'll be surrounded by? Can I also get the academic experience that I want? Because I needed that as well. It can just be only golf either. And I also liked the environment there. It's a high desert. You can hit the ball forever, but you also have weather and different types of golf courses. So I could develop as a player. So it just really ticked all the boxes for me. And I have so much gratitude for them because my coach, I sucked. Like, I asked her, I'm like, what did you see when I was 18? Because it was bad. So I really have a lot of gratitude for her believing in me.
So I want to pick up on that because you talked about having the dream. At what point, like, you're playing high-level college golf, you're winning the BC AMs, but like, at what point in your mind did you think, you know what, like, I'm better than most of the players I'm playing against now? Like, when did doing this for a living become a legit possibility?
I think my 4th year of college. After my 4th year of college, I had a pretty or 5th year, I can't remember, but I had a wild season. I won 3 events. I made it through stage 1 of Q School. I qualified for the USAM. Like, I had all these things happen, and I was like, okay, I guess I have something. I got to be pretty good. But even to this day, it still takes a while to start believing that you're good enough. Not that just you're. It's not just a good week. Like, you actually have the skills to make it. So, but I would say later, like towards the end of college. And that goes even to just as a person. Like, when do you feel like you're good enough as a person to make it in this life? So those things go together.
Let me take you back last week to Alabama, the final qualifying stage. You lead the tournament after 1 round. It is a rainy mess there. They reduce the length of the tournament from 5 rounds to 4. It's lift, clean in place because of the moisture on the golf course. Mm-hmm. And Leah, you get a 2-stroke penalty. Take us through that and where your headspace was after getting that kind of ruling. Tell us about the ruling itself, and then tell us about where your headspace was after having to suffer a 2-stroke penalty.
Yeah. So like you said, this golf tournament was unlike most. We had difficult conditions, so we were, picking up our ball, having to move it, take relief from water and all this stuff. So we were engaging with the rules of golf a lot. And anyways, but on this one hole, on my 17th hole, I lifted up my ball, cleaned it, placed it, and it rolled. And the girls were like, oh, you can move it. And then I was like, oh, that's interesting. On my 16th hole, my ball moved. And I asked my caddy, I said, can I replace it and fix it? He's like, no, you can leave it as it is. Anyway, so when that happened on the 17th hole, it made me think of my previous hole that I had. And so I talked to the rules official and I said, I messed up on this hole. This is what I did. I wasn't trying to break any rules. You know, in golf, you're trying to do the right thing, and sometimes it's still not the right thing. And so anyway, so she gave me a 2-stroke penalty, which I was totally fine with, because I think having, you know, being an honest player and having a clear conscience about your decision is way more important than anything. So that happened. I said, okay, cool. I made a lot of birdies anyway, so I have room for this in the score. And yeah, so that's what happened. I wasn't, it was unfortunate, but I think, you know, that's just what happens. Like this, like I said, this tournament was so unusual with how we were doing all of that. I think messing up it just happens. And then you learn.
So you weren't rattled at all, Leah? You weren't like, oh my God, here goes the lead, I may fall out of the top, whatever. None of that was crossing. No. Hey, awesome.
I mean, stories of Q School are legendary. Tell me a little bit about the pressure that you felt, or maybe you were able to sort of stay, you know, within yourself and not feel it. But it's right that your dream is right there, but you have to run the gauntlet of Q School. How was the overall event?
Totally. I always say that Q School for me started, you know, beginning of November when I was preparing. So I was getting ready for it then and mentally then. However, that was still probably the hardest week I've ever had, not physically, but just mentally going through all of that. You know, yes, you come to terms with that. It's your career and you say, whatever happens, I'm going to be okay with, because I'm not defined by this, but I also really want this to happen because I put my whole life towards this. And I loved that it was a chaotic week. I thought that was to my advantage. I like chaos. You know, the weather sucked, but it was like home, and that's what I'd been practicing in for months. So it was familiar, and I know I could grind through it. And also, bad weather helps you stay present, you know? So that's a benefit. And then also the stop and start of it too. You know, all you want to do is get this thing going, and you can't. You know, so you're just playing cards and waiting to tee off. But it was a super difficult week. I struggled a lot with anxiety, and so that was just through the roof, and finding ways to find peace in my day. And, you know, my caddy was super helpful, you know, someone to chat to, keep you in the present. But it was nice starting the day with the 64. I mean, I wanted as much cushion as possible, sure. But so I was like, perfect. So that definitely helped. And then towards the end, when my last day when I had only 11 holes to play, you know, you can taste it. It's so close, but then you're like, but I have to stay in the moment here. And so, I mean, that's the beauty of golf, I guess. But holy, Q School is brutal. It is so brutal. And as it should be, though.
You talk about, you know, leaning on experiences to get you through something like that. You qualified and played in the U.S. Open last year at Erin Hills. I know you didn't make the cut, but still that had to be an incredible experience just to be in that arena.
No, definitely. Like you said, every tournament in general is a culmination of everything you've gone through and then what you've been able to pull out of yourself and do in those moments. So, yes, it was very reminiscent of doing something like that and, you know, being able to handle pressure. You only know how to handle pressure unless you're in it. So at the same time, it's like, this is exactly where I need to be. And I either swim or you drown and figure it out.
One of the things that people may not know as much about with Leah is that her dad, again, Jason, and grew up and became best friends with Rick Celebrini, who we, of course, know, former Canucks director of sports science down with the Golden State Warriors. Which means, Leah, you grew up alongside Aidan, Macklin, Charlie. Their sister is a fabulous tennis player, and little RJ is ripping up minor hockey on the North Shore. How much did you guys all push each other athletically? Because look at all the success you guys are having in different sports amongst the group.
Right? It's always been our dream to be on the cover of like some sports magazine and talk about our story growing up with each other. But yeah, we pushed each other a lot, but we inspired each other a lot. You know, I look at all of those kids and think, wow, you're amazing. They always call me a Celebrini, but I was like, unless I'm a professional athlete, I can't be one. Yeah, and they're an incredible family. We related to them, and they're tight knit and hard work that they put into everything. So yes, we inspired and pushed a lot, and we still do to this day, and sending messages. And it's also incredible. You know, I held all of them when they were babies in my arms, and just seeing what they do, and I take credit. No. But yes, it is super cool.
How was the celebration?
So much fun. I don't want it to end. I've been having the best time. It's the best news to tell people. I say it's like you have a secret. You know, you're in the coffee shop and getting your coffee, and then you just think to yourself, like I have a cool secret. So it's been wonderful. I've had so many people reach out to me, which means a lot, and it's just awesome.
Where have you seen the most growth in your game? Let's just go back 12 months even to Christmas last year to now. And also, what do you believe is sort of the biggest separators at the highest levels? Like, what makes Nelly Korda or Brooke or Gino or any, the top players, like, what separates them from the rest of the pack?
I think, so for myself, the biggest growth was the realization that I have to prioritize my value system first to play good golf. You know, I had a rough start to my season. I missed all 5 cuts, and then I qualified for the Open out of nowhere. I decided that if I wanted to play this game, I was going to do it with joy and being my full self and prioritize that. And then from a game standpoint, spent a lot of time on my golf swing. I love ball striking, and so that's what I like to hone in on, and making my swing efficient and not replicable, but, you know, day in, day out, can I still achieve the ball flight that I want and not kill my body while I'm doing that? And then, I mean, putting always goes a long way, but you really start to appreciate out on the professional level what your skills actually need to be, but also making mistakes, like just all you got to do is recover. And that's a huge skill in its own too. And to your point of what's the separator is truly these girls can recover. You know, they get a bogey or whatever, and then they move on. It doesn't continue and trickle. And then two, they, like I said, I think they have a good idea of who they are as people and are able to connect with that when they play.
Lastly, 33 events on the LPGA Tour next year. What have you qualified for? What do you know in terms of the 5 majors? Do you know your schedule? Have you met Brooke Henderson before? Tell me about next season on tour.
Yes, I'm still trying to understand the events and such that I will get into. But basically, the category that I have for after Q School, I will likely begin getting into, I'd say at least 80% of their events. You know, the majors and such are limited fields, and for example, they're top 70, and that's based on the money list. So there's also time for movement. You know, if you have a good start, and they reshuffle twice during the season, so your category and status can change. So as of right now, I'm looking like I'm getting into like a lot of events, and I'll have lots of great starts, which is awesome. My first event is looking like China, first week of March. So I'll be getting kicked off to a good start there. And sorry, what was the last question that you asked? Oh, have I met Brooke Henderson?
Yes.
Yes. I met her in at the Canadian Open last year in the locker room, which was great. So normal. We were just washing our hands, flexing her Rolex watch. I'm like, hey, how's it going?
Don't worry, you'll get that timepiece too here
Yes.
in time. Lastly, Leah, you talked about you and the Celebrini's inspiring one another. Seems like you've inspired British Columbia golf here. Coquitlam's AJ Ewart, Surrey's Adam Svensson, they qualify for the PGA Tour in the final qualifying event yesterday. Huh? You noticed that?
I know. Love to see it. It's so good. I mean, golf is hard. And men's golf, I don't want to say in particular, but they do have a lot of hoops that they have to jump through with pre-qualifiers and all this stuff. So it's pretty amazing and makes me really happy to see that BC golf is growing. Canadian golf in general is growing because we have lots of talent.
Including the person we are talking to. Absolutely delighted for you, Leah. Thank you so much for the time here. Wish you all the best next season on tour. We'll be following closely and forever in your corner.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the time.
Sekeres and Price from the historic Wall Center in the Pacific Toyota Dealer Studio, built by Arbor Lee. Game night, make it a game weekend. Turn that ticket into a downtown getaway with a special Sekeres and Price rate here at the Wall. Book now. Call 604-331-1000. Say you heard it here. Some blackout date supply based on availability. First of all, this is your first co-host shift when we're in the new arrangement.
Tight,
with the new
cozy
positionings. Yeah, I was going to say, are you holding up okay?
It's been all right.
It's awfully
yeah,
close.
It's been okay. It's good.
Trouble with the Canadian hockey team. No, not the Canucks. No, not even the Canadian men's team with their goaltending. How about everything with the women's team? Did you see this? Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Canada went over in the rivalry series against their arch rival, the United States of America. They lost 4-1 in the final game on the weekend. They were outscored 24-7 in the 4-game series, with the U.S. taking all 4. So averaging like 6-2, not even 6-2, not even 2 for the Canadians.
Yeah.
Victories over the 4-game series. Now, take from this what you may. There have been many a quadrennial where the United States has dominated the games, the World Championships, and then when the chips were down in the gold medal game under the rings, guess who won? It was always, or more often than not, us and Marie-Philippe Poulin. Canada won the gold 4 years ago in Beijing. USA won the gold 8 years ago in Pyeongchang. Canada's won 5 of the 7 gold medals at the Olympics, dating back to Nagano in '98.
It's the 10 goals against in that one game. First time
They
they've ever
put up 10 goals in a game. Yeah.
Really worries about me because that's. I mean, there's obviously the sort of structural reasons those happen and the performance reasons, but there's the mentality of just like that is a crushing blow to your focus.
We're going to find out in a few months here, but I'm interested to see how Own the Podium and Road to Excellence are doing as philosophies in this country. It seems like we're having some hits in the Summer Olympics. They tend to be concentrated in a few number of, like we're good throwers right now.
Yeah.
And this is totally anecdotal and cursory, but I take a look at World Cup results coming out of weekends, and it seems to me like we're back like fighting for podiums as opposed to owning and, clear medal locks like people who would be devastated not to win or not to get on the podium. But we'll see. We'll see where this goes. Pittsburgh beats Miami on Monday Night Football, eliminates the Dolphins from postseason play, gives the Steelers a 1-game lead over Baltimore in the AFC North. They also hold the head-to-head tiebreaker over the Ravens. They play again in Week 18. With 3 weeks to play, there are 7 teams already eliminated in the AFC and 6 in the NFC. It just seems the gap between good and terrible is larger this year in the NFL. Another year where the NFL had like a good number of unwatchable teams.
Yep.
Peach.
Well, I mean, Nate Silver had this great analysis a month or two ago about how everyone now understands that you really have 4 downs to work with, that it's the 1st and 9. You're not starting 1st and 10, you're starting 1st and 9.
Right.
And so that's why we're seeing these short runs off the top and kind of sticking with it, I think I can do it. And it's just it's in many ways I love data and love numbers, but it's sort of the way numbers have kind of change the way we think about big plays. Do I just need? It's why the tush push. Like why I only need 1 yard. I don't need 6 here. I just need 1.
Yep.
And that, as a result, is what we've seen. I mean,
but you're right.
Yeah.
Like when coaches commit to giving an extra down to people, well, maybe Patrick Mahomes a bad example this year, but Josh Allen, it puts even more pressure on the team that doesn't have that kind of talent. 9 teams can clinch playoff spots in Week 16. 4 of them don't need any help. Win and they're in, and one of those is the Seattle Seahawks. Thursday night, the huge one against the LA Rams, 11-3 versus 11-3. Winner takes a lead in the NFC West division. Likely number 1 seed in the NFC. This is the game of the NFL year on paper. Let's hope it lives up to the billing.
It's the flip side. I mean, I was going to say the other point is I always talk about let's ban coaches because coaches ruin all the fun, right? But Sean
McVay and Mike Macdonald are 2 I would rather not ban.
Exactly. They're the guys I want.
Smart guys. Eagles can clinch the division Saturday at Washington. The Patriots can clinch a playoff spot Sunday night at Baltimore. And even the 49ers, the third team right now in the NFC West, they can clinch with a win at Indianapolis on Monday night. The Rams have already clinched a playoff spot. Seattle can also clinch with a loss and a Detroit loss or tie to Pittsburgh on Sunday. North of the border, BC Lions re-signed fullback Riley Pickett to a 2-year deal. He's one of these quintessential Canadian jack-of-all-trades players that you need to win. He's played D-line. He has been the long snapper. He's moved to fullback. He got 13 touches last year, 7 receptions out of the backfield. Ryan Rigmaiden had a little bit of salary cap space to be able to re-sign guys and apply the signing bonus to this year's cap as opposed to next year. So he got some of that done with Pickett. And then lastly, and I've told him, boy, you're collecting quite a list of Hall of Fames right now.
Not many left for him to go into.
Farhan Lalji has been named to the new Sports Hall of Fame from the city of Burnaby. You're a Burnaby resident.
Very proud to be in the same community as Farhan Lalji.
Yes. So Farhan grew up in Burnaby. He's associated with New West now because the New West High
lived there for
all
years.
that. But of course, he grew up in Burnaby. He joins former CFL kicker Sean Fleming of the Edmonton franchise, lawn bowler Josephine Lee, speed skating coach Ariana Vanderstar, and lacrosse organizer Susan Kirkby. He was inducted into the Canadian Football Reporters Hall of Fame wing in the Canadian Football Hall of Fame last November here at Grey Cup in his hometown. It's almost like he's getting old, Peach.
Don't tell him that.
No, I know.
His kids are
very
still
young.
Kids are still in school.
Exactly.
That's all he'll tell you.
Yeah, sat beside him on the plane all the way home from Florida. We had a great chat. He's spry as ever.
Yes.
Results from the poll question, not only yesterday, but from Friday as well. We didn't get to that yesterday. Have you gotten over the Quinn Hughes trade? We asked them that yesterday, Peach. The answers were yes, no, or never. What do you think won the poll?
Yes.
It did. Percentage?
65.
59. Pretty good. Fishing guy was over at the moment it happened. In fact, elated. Ownership management have opened the door now to do the right thing by moving quality older players for young, high potential prospect. Tons of teams need players the Canucks have. Clagsy, I have, but I don't think I will ever at the same time, you know? Like this franchise fumbled the best defenseman it has ever seen. Buium is amazing, but I don't know if he's 90 points amazing. Discussed that earlier. East fan, Nucks fan says the people saying yes are going to find out real quick. And then on Friday, in the immediate aftermath, we asked everyone, how do you feel about the return on Quinn Hughes? The options here were like, dislike, and still processing. Still processing got 49% of the vote.
Fair.
35% said like, 16% said dislike. Terry, the fact it wasn't 2 first is a colossal failure. Okay. Don, I like the return for Hughes. He wasn't signing an extension anyway, so it's better than losing him for nothing. And Craig says, get back to me in 2029. That's fair, too. I get that as well.
I think that's the biggest thing to recognize. And as we said earlier, I'm talking about my Jim Rutherford stuff. There is a focus here, but they got to deliver. I mean, that's really what it is. And getting over it. I mean, I said that I was on with Kevin Carius on 1440 in Edmonton yesterday. and he was, he asked the same question, and I said, I think more than anything, Canucks fans want, it's the do something thing, right? Like they want it. I mean, it's a horrendous thing to have to do.
They want to plan,
but they want to see something other than the crap that's been on the plate.
Yeah. I mean, they entered this year not with a plan, with hope. Hope is not a plan. We've talked about it. Yeah. And now, as I said yesterday, they have direction. We'll see if they see it through to the destination.
Yeah.
Because they've had direction in the past. They just haven't had the patience to get it to the destination. Thank you for this, my dude. It was great seeing you again live and in the flesh. Really appreciate when you're able to fill in here.
Especially early.
You look fantastic, too. The Mexico glow on Peach today. I hope everybody recognized it.
It was great. It was great to be back. It was nice. I mean, it's busy. Jumped right back into it. Yeah, no, it was great. Thanks for having me.
This is what happens when we're away for the biggest trade in franchise history, Patrick.
Oh, boy. Sitting in the hotel room.
Blake was too.
Got it done.
Jeff was in here yesterday. He goes, it reminds me of when I was on the golf course in Palm Springs and they traded Horvat. And I'm like, really? It's been a plague of these. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Appreciate you spending some time connecting with the program. Please do subscribe to our assorted channels. It costs you nothing. YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. Follow on social, X, Insta, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky. You'll find this guy in Blue Sky a lot. And, of course, please do support the community sponsors you hear us talking about and keep it local.